Okay, today we're going to talk about trig functions and sign changes. I don't know if you noticed yesterday, but in certain quadrants, your sine was positive, but the cosine was negative. And so we're going to talk about where our sine is positive, where it's negative, and all the different functions. And there's a trick to remember it, so don't freak out. So what I want you to do is go ahead and take out the notes from yesterday. So pause the video, take out the notes from yesterday, and that way we don't have to do a bunch of problems that we've already done to see where sine is positive and where it's not. Okay, so go ahead and pause it, get out your notes. Okay, so on your notes, you have 4 examples, right, of different points, and there's an example of each quadrant, right? So look at the first problem. The first problem had quadrant 1. We had a triangle in quadrant 1. And I want you to look through, and I want you to see which functions were positive, okay? You should see that the sine function was positive, cosine was positive, tangent was positive, cosecant was positive, secant, and cotangent, right? All of those functions were positive. So this is what I would write on your notes for today. We're going to fill in the quadrants with all the functions that are positive. These are positive trig functions. All right, look at number 2 on your notes from yesterday. Number 2 was in quadrant 2, right? We had a triangle over here in quadrant 2. Look at what trig functions were positive for quadrant 2. Okay, sine was positive, and its reciprocal cosecant, that was positive. But those are the only ones, right? The other ones were negative. Okay, go ahead and look at number 3. Number 3 had a tangent that was positive and cotangent. And then look at number 4. Number 4 had cosine and secant that were positive. Okay, so there is a trick to remembering it. And the way I was taught to remember it is starting in quadrant 1, going counterclockwise like that. A, S, T, C. So all your functions are positive in quadrant 1. The S is for sine, T is for tangent, C is for cosine. Okay, and what I was taught that this stood for, if you go counterclockwise like that, all students take calculus. That's how I learned it. You can probably come up with a better one than that, but it kind of helps you remember which ones are positive in the quadrants without having to go back and do a bunch of examples to see. Okay, all functions, the sine function, tangent, and cosine. All students take calculus. Okay. Like I said, come up with a better one. I'd love to hear your ideas tomorrow, because I'm sure you can come up with a much better one, but it'll help. So let's answer those 4 questions. And on the worksheet today, it's going to be kind of a review for your test tomorrow, for your quiz. On your quiz tomorrow, you're going to have to convert from radians to degrees, degrees to radians. You're going to have to know coterminal angles and how to find them. You're going to have to know if I give you an angle in degrees or radians, what quadrant that would be in. So something good to know would be that unit circle where we broke it up into different sections. you're going to have to do what you did yesterday with the points. You're going to have to know the trig functions. So sine equals y over r, cosine is x over r. So if you know your SOHCAHTOA, you'll be fine. But yeah, to review, you have the worksheet today to review, but I would definitely look through all of the notes that you took this week. That's going to help out a lot. Look over your notes, look over your worksheets. So let's do the next 4, and then y'all can get to work. Okay, so part A, question A, we want to find when cosine and tangent have the same sign. So they could both be positive or they could both be negative. So look at your axis at the top that we filled in. Where would cosine and tangent have the same sign? Which quadrants would they have the same sign? And it could be more than one quadrant, okay? In quadrant 1, both of these are positive, right? Now, can you find a quadrant where they're both negative? Okay, it'd actually be quadrant 2. In quadrant 2, the only functions that are positive we wrote on there would be sine and cosecant. So the cosine and tangent would be negative. Okay, question or part B, we have cosine that is negative, and we need a sine to be positive. In what quadrant would sine be positive and cosine negative? Okay, well, there's only 2 quadrants where sine is positive at all, right? Quadrant 1 and quadrant 2 are where sine is positive. So out of those 2, where would cosine be negative? Okay, it's not negative in 1, it's only negative in quadrant 2. Okay, so you just have to kind of think through it. I would write that little trick on your quiz tomorrow, that all students take calculus trick. That way you have it to refer to. Okay, on C, cotangent and secant they have opposite signs. Okay, so one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. All right, so whenever I say cotangent, that's the same thing as tangent when we're talking about positive or negative. Secant would be cosine. So when do they have opposite signs? Okay, quadrant 1, they have the same sign. They're positive. Quadrant 2, the only one that's positive would be sine. Okay, these would both be negative, so it's not quadrant 2. Quadrant 3, sine and cotangent are positive, so these would be negative. That's in 3. And quadrant 4, the cosine and secant are positive, and then the tangent and cotangent are negative. So it'd be 3 and 4. All right, and last one, we have cosine and cosecant. Okay, where do they have the same sign? They could both be positive, they could both be negative. So one quadrant where they have the same sign is going to be that first one, where they're all positive. And then, let's see, we need to find one where they're both negative. So find where cosine and, let's see, sine, this is just the reciprocal. Where would they both be negative? Okay, and it would be in quadrant 3, where tangent and cotangent are the only ones that are positive. Okay, so if y'all have any questions, email me, and I'll see you tomorrow.